All right, I see we have a few people kind of trickling in. I'm just going to give it a few more seconds. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started today. My name is Rachel. I'm one of the admissions counselors here at Stony Brook University. We have, as you can see, a few people joining us today, so I'm not going to delay any further because I know we have a lot of great content to cover. So welcome formally to the College of Arts and Sciences Preview Day. Today, we are going to start off covering its citizenship, labor representation, social justice, and politics. And leading us off is going to be Dean Sampson. So I'm going to pass it over to her.
Thank you so much, Rachel. And hello, everyone. And congratulations on your acceptance to Stony Brook University. As I just mentioned, I'm Nicole Sampson, Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences at Stony Brook. And I'd like to thank you for spending the next hour with us to learn more about opportunities you'll have as a future Seawolf. Today's discussion, citizenship, labor, representation, social justice, and politics, we'll touch on what is happening today in the US and globally in terms of these social issues. You'll also have an opportunity to learn more about our newest bachelor's program, Globalization Studies and International Relations, which launched in the fall of 2020 and has individual tracks within that program that allow students to focus on a particular area of expertise. After the presentation, we will address any questions you may have about this program and our other programs in general. First, I want to give you what you're looking at in this slide here is a bird's eye view of the campus. And at the heart of the campus is the College of Arts and Sciences, which is the largest of the schools and colleges within Stony Brook University. We have 26, sorry, I lost my notes there. I should know this though. We have 26 departments and nearly 20 centers and institutes, and we offer 30 majors and more than 40 minors, as well as many doctoral programs. So next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Tracey Walters, professor in the Department of Africana Studies, who will lead today's presentation. If you could please wave your hand, Professor Walters. And I'd also like to introduce Dr. Sophie Leroy, who's a professor in the Department of European Languages, Literatures, and Cultures, and the director of the Institute for Globalization Studies, who will give an overview of our new major that I just mentioned. And last, I would also like to introduce sophomore Christina Mlinarova, a Globalization Studies and International Relations major, and she's also a member of my Student Advisory Council. So thanks for joining us, all three of you, and this time I'll turn the presentation over to Dr. Walters, and I will stop screen sharing.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everybody. Wonderful to see you. I'm going to now share my screen and hopefully it will be a seamless transition. One can only hope. All right, and it was. Let me see. So hi, everybody. Good evening and welcome to GLI 402. So we're just going to give you a little snippet today of what we cover in this class. It's a relatively new class and I'm so excited to be teaching it and to be speaking with you today about some of the things we do in class. I like my session to be interactive. We'll see, time might be against me, but we'll see if we have an opportunity to do some interactive activities. My cat's trying to join the presentation. Get down. So we'll go over GLI 402, just to give you an overview. There might be time for an icebreaker. I'm hoping that we'll get to maybe a crib note version of Plato's Republic, and then think about life on Mars. So GLI 402 is not your average boring civics course. What makes it unique is that we teach the class from a global perspective. And through classroom debates and writing assignments, we examine how historical texts and foundational ideas impact current events and the students' personal communities. I'm gonna check my time here. Students read foundational classical texts that are related to civics and democracy. So as to be expected, Plato, Cicero, Aristotle, but we put these texts in conversation with more contemporary works, writings of Mandela, Simón Bolívar, James Baldwin, and others. And again, with the emphasis on global. Some of the key themes we hone in on are citizenship, labor, representation, justice, and activism. So for example, When we discuss citizenship, we think about who has access to citizenship. What are citizens' rights? We discuss immigration, right? Obviously, that's a hot global issue. Borders. In regards to activism, we think about the global dimensions of social justice movements such as BLM or climate change, especially with an emphasis on young people, youth movements, right? Because you young people are the change that's going to happen. It's your future, your world. So we like to think about the issues that are specific to you. The guiding questions for GLI 402, there are two. How do historical civics and democracy texts relate to modern day events, right? So we look at different constitutions, the US Constitution, the French Constitution, younger constitutions like the South African Constitution. We think about the evolution of constitutions, right? That often change with the needs of a society, whether it's LGBTQ rights, whether it's the women's rights, constitutions, amendments to constitutions and articles are constantly changing and evolving. So we investigate that. And we'll be talking a little bit more about constitutions later on. Then how can we present the foundational issues of these texts to a general audience? Whether we're talking about freedom, protections, what does it mean today, right? And I think the pandemic serves as a great example. The will of the people, what is the will of the people, right? We go back to our laws to determine whether or not our governments are working within our best interest or are they violating our rights? I think the pandemic is a great example of that. You'll see the motorcade there, you'll see masks, vaccinations. We won't get into it at this moment. Governments don't exist in a vacuum, right? And so that we think about a collective approach to global issues, and the recent conference there in Glasgow last year on climate change is a perfect example of how we do that. And then finally, if you had been watching, I've been glued to the television for the last 2 weeks or so, watching the Olympics. The Olympics is a perfect case study of governments coming together, governments with differences, right? The Winter Olympics was hosted by China, an authoritarian government, hosting a number of democratic governments with different views. So it's a great example of how governments can come together, but also at the same time, we know there's that underlying narrative there of tension. So we discuss those issues as well. I had a little quiz for you that we won't have time to go over, but questions for consideration, right? Things such as the credo of a nation, liberty, equality, fraternity, right? Shared by both the Haitian and French government. But what does that mean in the 21st century, right? Some other figures there on the screen, but we're going to move on in the interest of time. So the Constitution is where we start. And we start with Plato and the idea of, not the idea, but his Republic, written in 375 BC, and the Calopolis, the ideal city. What is an ideal city? If we had time to go through this, we would get down to business. And I would tell you that, I think I want you to at least know this, if you don't already, that the Republic is a piece of literature. It's not historical fact. Plato documents Socrates' conversations, dialogues with his interlocutors, and he records it all in a great work known as the Republic. And it's a text that has been drawn on from a number of different governments, right, to establish their own. In this text, which we think of as a thought exercise, of really getting down to ethics and politics. And other critics have a different way of reading it and interpreting it, but we won't get into that at this moment. But at any rate, what's most important is in this ideal city, the perfect city, this question comes to bear, which is it better to be just or unjust? And he uses this question about us as human beings to make the point that if we are unjust, we're not just ruled by fear, right? And if we are just, we're not just morals. And to further explicate upon this, he makes it analogous to the ways in which we see a city. A just city is one in which man is harmonious. An unjust city is one in which there's tyranny. because we are driven by our appetites and not knowledge and wisdom and what is good. He outlines these 5 regimes, which most of you are probably familiar with: an aristocracy, an oligarchy, a democracy, right? And one forms the other. He talks about what he calls philosopher kings, and the philosopher kings are the individuals who rule the city because they are good. And they are good because they've been trained for a number of years in philosophy and math, and they are not driven by power and greed. And they will do what is right for the city because they are in the search of truth and they are ethical beings. And then there are auxiliaries, the soldiers that protect the city. And then there are the producers who do all of the work. Anyway, the point is, this ideal city has been interpreted by a number of governments. It forms the basis for whether it's the UK, the US, China, Germany. Many different governments have drawn from Plato's work. Now, they've interpreted it in their own ways for both good and for bad. I should point that out. I wanted to start with the Calopolis, the notion of a utopian city. And there are some problems with the way that Plato sees things, because it's more of an authoritarian, if you get down to it, but government. So if you've been watching television over the last year or so, and you know who Elon Musk is, you know that he launched his rocket there before Branson, SpaceX, right? And in 10 years, I'd like to colonize Mars. Poor Richard Branson made it up there, but wasn't as successful as Musk, but he's more interested in astrotourism. And then you have Bezos, last on the list here, with his Blue Origin and taking civilians up. So with these space ventures, we watch movies, we know going up to space has been about discovery and exploration, and we've seen this in fiction and film, but now we're moving to inhabitation, right? It's not just about astrotourism, it's also about colonization. So on the Third Row Tesla podcast in January, Musk said there will be a direct democracy on Mars, so that the inhabitants will make decisions for themselves. And he believes there should be fewer and less complicated laws on Mars than there are on Earth. So we have an opportunity, or you have an opportunity, the students who have joined us today, to think about what a new constitution might look like on Mars, right? When we colonize Mars. So who will be there? Who will get to go, right? Who has access? Bezos and Branson are inviting those with the means to go, and probably, for equity's sake, maybe a fireman, maybe a teacher. But for right now, those who have access to either the Branson or the Bezos spacecraft are those with the means. What nations are going to rush, right? So we know about the gold rush, Midwest, right? So the rush to Mars. Who else is going to be able to go to Mars, right? Who has the resources, the technological advancement, right? So what is Mars going to look like? What do we want Mars to look like? Who gets to decide? What are some of the challenges that are going to be facing those who occupy Mars, right? What languages will be spoken on Mars? Will we have separate nations on Mars? So if we were in class together, this is one of the first exercises that you would be doing. We would be thinking about, what does it look like to create your own constitution? And it is a very real possibility that's going to be happening soon. I think that's my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Walters, so much. I'm trying to think about how I would colonize Mars. I'm not quite sure. So let me ask Christina, if you would like to say a few words about yourself, your studies, and your experience at Stony Brook. And if you want to share your answer to Professor Walters' challenge question, please go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Christina. I'm a second-year student studying globalization studies and international relations, and I'm also minoring in history. And I I chose Stony Brook. Oh, sorry, the question, right? Okay, I'll just go ahead. So I chose Stony Brook because of its affordability, mostly. As we know, it's like a SUNY school, and it's the tuition, all the expenses are a lot cheaper than going to a private school. But Stony Brook also has many of like the same features offered at, as private schools. So I thought that since Stony Brook was like the most highly ranked of the SUNYs, I would say. And I saw that they had many like scholarship opportunities, internship, job opportunities, all of that, that I would enroll here. And also I saw that they were opening up the GLI major for fall 2020, which was going to be my first semester. And I thought that that was very interesting because other schools that I was considering, I was going to be like a political science major, or like I don't know, like languages, literatures, and cultures. And I was like, that's a little too broad because I know what I want to do. I want to be an international relations major. So I decided to go to Stony Brook because of that. So at Stony Brook, or I'm a member of the University Scholars Honors Program, which is, I believe, they select a cohort of about like 100 students from the freshman class. And through that, I was able to be involved as a University Scholars Fellow last semester, where I was a teaching assistant to the 101 like freshman seminar class. And the University Scholars Program also has like personalized advising compared to where, if I believe, if you're just a general student, you like switch advisors every year, but we get to keep the same advisor for our whole 4 years at Stony Brook. Then I also participated in Hall Council my freshman year, which led me to get my position as a resident assistant, or an RA, sophomore year. And I feel like that was a good opportunity to make residential life more enjoyable for the students. And I work with like students who are like my age or older. So I feel like it's easy for me to be able to cater events to what they enjoy. And then I was also an international student ambassador, where I helped new international students adjust to Stony Brook. At a time, I was doing that last spring, so it was difficult, especially with COVID. A lot of them were like at home, then some of them were also on campus, so it was difficult for them to be able to connect with other people, so I was like that resource for them. And then I am also a member of the Dean Student Advisory Council, where we make information about the College of Arts and Sciences more accessible to the students through like promotion on social media, and we kind of show students what it's like to study in different areas, because there's a lot of people who are STEM majors, people who aren't STEM majors like me. So just to show how varied life can be as a Stony Brook student. And then I also recently, last week, was hired as a student assistant at the Office of Global Affairs. And although I don't have much experience with that yet, I feel like I will be able to learn more about Stony Brook's international initiatives through that program as well, and work on more like social media promotion skills. And then my favorite thing about Stony Brook is actually like the diversity of the people who go here. Like there's so many people, different like backgrounds and experiences, and I feel like I am a better, like I'll be able to learn from them better and like better my own like college experience. And I feel like at Stony Brook, we're like presented with so many different opportunities that I feel like it's hard to not get involved in anything. I think you have to like make the most out of every opportunity you're given, and then kind of try and like explore new opportunities, even though these opportunities can not be in like the major you're interested in and all that. I feel like having friends who study something different to me will allow me to see like the whole college experience. Like I have friends who are STEM majors, I have friends who are commuters. So I feel like that allows me to see college life like through everyone's perspective. And then my key takeaways from being a GLI major. So I chose the major mostly because since my father is a diplomat, I was given the opportunity to travel to many different places and then experience many different cultures. And I feel like through those experiences, I became interested in also studying that and pursuing that on like a professional level in the future. So in the GLI major, you take 5 foundational courses with professors from different departments. So for example, in GLI 211, which is the introduction course, the professors were like professors from the sociology department and the history department. And then last semester, I took a GLI 330, which had professors from the political science department. There's professors from like all like philosophy, Africana studies, like Asian American studies, and all of that. So it really allows you to study just from all different like departments, and you don't have to limit yourself to like one thing. So for example, how I wanted to like study political science before, but now I can study political science, but I can also study history, I can study Africana studies, I can study different languages and all of that. So you have to choose a global interaction area and then a global issue to study. So for example, I'm studying global Africa, and as well as transnational corporations and trans-regional institutions. And then you also have to get up to the 300 level in language study. So I am studying Russian as my language, but then I'm also studying Spanish on the other side. So I'm trying to do as many languages as I can, because I feel like that'll help me in my future career goals. And then I feel like the GLI professors are always willing to like connect us with certain opportunities. Like they'll present like certain like events that they are working on. And then the Institute for Globalization Studies also sends out like newsletters. And since the major is pretty small, I feel like the advising is very like personalized. And I think that's good because you'll be able to be connected with things very easily. And yeah, and this is just something else. I chose to be a history minor as well because I think that like to solve problems in the present, we really have to look to the past. So I feel like that kind of inspired me to do that as well. And a lot of the courses, as I said, interact with the GLI major as well. So it's very easy to minor in another subject that you study within GLI. So yeah, that was something about GLI, something about Stony Brook. And
thank you, Christina. Yeah. That was great. The enthusiasm comes straight through. Let me, before we start our Q&A, and I hope that you're queuing up your questions, Dr. Leroy, would you just like to add a few words about GLI and globalization studies and international relations major?
Yes, so I actually had prepared a slideshow, a short version of it, but the wonderful thing is that Christina has captured the essence of the whole degree, and it's even better because it comes from a student's perspective. So thank you very much, Christina. So I don't know if you'd like me to present that, or if you'd like to me to add just a couple of more things and let the attendants ask very specific questions, because I think that Christina's testimony was very, very informative. So please let me know what you would like me to how you would like me to proceed.
Rachel, do you have questions from the audience that you would like us to answer?
It looks like we do have one that just came through. So is a language required? We have one question about.
So
Yes.
Sophie, why don't you
So
take
I
that
think
one?
it will be, yes, very practical if you ask very specific questions, and then I can go back to what Christina said to highlight a few points. So one of the specificities of these degrees is, the emphasis on languages and cultures, or cross-cultural culture understanding. But in terms of language, the requirements are above the university requirements. As Christina pointed out, for instance, in her case, and she's very representative of the students in who decide to choose GLI, in the sense that just as Stony Brook is a very, very diverse a population of students, GLI, I would say all the more, or for obvious reason. And so in general, the students in GLI come in with a heritage language, or they have this thirst for language and culture. So they usually come at a certain level in a language. We strongly encourage them to pick a second language. So Christina, for instance, decided to develop her Russian skills, and then she picked up Spanish as part of the GLI degree. So she'll come in with two languages, one being stronger than the other, but both at a communicative level, and both above the university requirements. It is perhaps also a question that is linked with study abroad, because another specificity of the degree is that it comes with a requirement to either do study abroad, participate in the study abroad, and we have a wonderful office for that. And we also, being part of the SUNY system, can offer a whole variety of destination. And the alternative to study abroad would be to do an internship. So these are things that are part of the degree.
So maybe I can just paraphrase the next question that came in. We have somebody from Columbia who's planning on majoring in biochemistry, and they want to know if they will be able to combine this biochemistry in some way with GLI, or the civics, politics, and social studies courses.
Yes, this is a great question, because this is exactly the way the degree was conceived. It particularly pairs well with another major or another minor. And it is, in essence, an interdisciplinary program within the College of Arts and Science, and even beyond the College of Arts and Sciences. Students could take classes in engineering, for instance, or we have pre-med students who are deciding to double major in GLI. In the case of the students who is asking the question, coming from Columbia, I assume that this student comes with a cultural background, possibly wants to apply this biochemistry degree with an international experience, and adding that to her biochemistry degree is certainly a plus. We would strongly encourage anyone whose intention is to practice their profession internationally, or domestically, but with an international scope, to minor or major in GLI, to have this foundation that is necessary to practice their profession, to communicate adequately, to understand, as Christina was saying, you need to understand what went on in the world in order to understand what's going on in the present, in the geopolitical realm. So this is a perfect degree to combine with whatever other degree exists. And it's very custom made. And I really like what Christina said about the advising, that also is very personalized. The academic, the advisor, the undergraduate advisor for GLI sits down with you and just map out your entire, a curriculum for you. And we have an immense choice of electives according to either the areas you are specializing in. For instance, you mentioned global Africa, in your case, Christina, and then the subject matter, the theme, transnational cooperation, etc. And then, you pick from those two categories, and you custom make your degree. So it's really very unique in the end.
So what is your advice for someone who is coming to Stony Brook? So they presumably speak English because they've passed an English requirement, but that's not their first language. They have, as you mentioned, a heritage language, or they're fluent already in a second language. Pick up a third language, 3 or 4 languages?
Oh, yes, there is
the
no
optimal
limitation. Here? Well, I think it really depends on what they want to use that language for, in combination with their other major possibly, or what is it that they want to achieve in life. And depending on that, they would be advised to pick a certain language. We're very excited at the idea that we're going to expand now. Arabic is going to be taught at a higher level, but we have otherwise the classic language. We were looking into an African language as well. Well, we're very well situated here at Stony Brook with all the different departments that offers languages and literature to pretty much offer what it is that the student is looking to use their language and culture for.
So what are the differences? And I don't know, Christina, if you considered being a minor instead of a major. It sounded like from what you said, you were really focused on being a major. But what are the differences in requirements between minoring and majoring in globalization and GLI?
Is it a question for me?
I think so, because you probably know the
yes,
most. But yes, I did address Christina there.
Yes, of course, about that. Of course. So, in your case, you already have a minor in history, so having the major in GLIs gives you a much stronger postures, because with the major, you follow these 5 core courses that you have mentioned. You progress in your curriculum, in your GLI curriculum, and you at the end, which I suppose you were taking right now, participate in this capstone seminar, which is a research seminar, which is the culmination of your degree. You also do an internship, and all these are not part of the minor. So the minor is definitely better than not having an experience with the degree. However, in the case of a student like Christina, whose goal is to study international relations, going for the full ride is certainly, the best route.
Professor Walters, would you like to add any thoughts about, what you've seen and what you see students doing with their coursework and the directions they're going?
Yeah, thank you. We have quite a few pre-law students who take the classes. They see the benefit too. They may not necessarily choose to work in the US. They might like to expand their horizons. We also have, the standard political science majors to be expected. But I think that the students take advantage of the unique ways in which the courses are taught. As Christina mentioned, because there's a dual approach to the teaching of the classes, they're getting a kind of like an extra bonus, because you're getting all of the kind of basic policy discussions. We go over all the standard texts that you would in any globalization course, but then you're also getting a perspective that's unique to the professor who teaches it. So I think it's Liana Davos, who teaches ecology, I believe. It's ecology.
Yes, it is the GLI 320, which is the one course that incorporates science at a pretty developed level, but alongside a cultural perspective around the theme of climate change, the environment, and the effect of globalization on the environment.
Right. So that's an example. We look at the impact of fast fashion as a global issue. We really get into some topics that are, I think, of interest to a younger generation. Of course, we look at political conflicts, and we think about borders, and we take stock of nation states and sovereignty and all of that, but we also try to bring in some other issues as well. So I think that the students appreciate they're able to voice or kind of lend their voices to the discussions and weigh in on issues that are specific to them. Again, bearing in mind that the future is theirs, and we don't operate in a vacuum, right? That globality means that, or transnationalism means that the flows are moving backward and forward. And so I think, again, younger generation, probably because of social media, they're less insular in their thinking, and they have a better understanding of how the world, impacts us all.
So there's a question here on, does this major have the same content depth as a program that has been around longer? So let me take that one, because in fact, this program, we've talked a lot about the GLI courses that are taught by faculty like Professor Walters, and but much of the courses in these various areas of specialization that you've heard Christina and Professor Leroy refer to are content pulled out of other programs. So in fact, I would say the depth of content is deeper than any of our programs, because it pulls from about 10 different majors the globalization, global aspects out of those majors. So there's, now I'm going to turn it over to you, but I think there must be 40, 50 different courses, is that right, to select from in each of these different areas? More.
Oh, many more. I hope admission will be able maybe to distribute the slideshow I had prepared, because you have links to the programs. I would say over 100, if not more, electives to choose from. And as I mentioned, they're categorized under either both the global interaction area, which would be, for instance, Global Africa in the case of Christina, or the theme. And we also, at the beginning of every semester, indicate to you which of this long list of electives are being offered that particular semester. And when you sit down with the advisor, that person also has an understanding and a knowledge of what will be offered. And so you can do some academic planning really ahead of time to make sure that you just make the most of the tremendous offering that we have. I also wanted maybe to echoing what Dean Sampson mentioned about the excellent standard, the very high standard of this degree, is that I have been privileged to be able to select the top faculty to teach those core courses, because we were so excited about this new degree. We had been waiting for over a decade to see global or globalization studies finally come at Stony Brook, and we for each course we have the best possible faculty in the field, and we have at least a dual perspective on each of the focus of this course, and the feedback that I've had, now we've been in business for the fourth semester, beside the fact that we've acquired over 50 majors and 30 some minors. The faculty has reported that the quality of the students is also quite exceptional. They all reported that.
Right. So the next question is, how does this program pair with other majors and minors, such as, for example, psychology or sociology? I don't know if one or the other of you would like to answer that question.
I'm not sure about psychology because it might be a little hard stretch in this case. Sociology is just the perfect companion to GLI. So is political science, but I would say Africana Studies, Asian and Asian American, European, Hispanics, for obvious reason. It's because, for instance, in the case of Christina, you picked well. History is a major player as well, because for instance, we have this course that we're offering in the spring, GLI 340, which is a conflict resolution course where the two instructors put together simulation situations. And I would imagine, Christina, that with your background in history, you are well equipped to participate in those simulations. So you bringing in a different minor or major into this GLI allows you to deepen your knowledge in what it is that you want to study, because you expand it to the entire world. And I think the presentation that Dr. Walters gave us around the notion of citizenship, social justice, etc. We are so interested in these issues right now domestically, and to be able to take a course that is going to allow you to articulate this problem across time and space is just amazing. It's makes it twice as worth.
Thanks. So Christina, maybe you mentioned this, but I'm not sure that you did. What sort of research opportunities are you thinking about? Are you thinking about taking advantage of different fellowships, or doing a thesis at the end? What are your thoughts there? I know you're in your second year, so maybe haven't figured all of that out yet.
Yeah, I haven't fully, I guess, thought about that yet, but I guess I would like to pursue a fellowship. I'm not sure exactly about what, or I guess write a thesis as well. Like, I feel like I could, I don't know, I guess bring like all the information that I learned both in like my history minor, but then also like to focus on something specific to like sub-Saharan Africa. And I know that there's like this program, I'm not in it like personally, so I don't know, but it's a program where students are able to get internships like with certain international organizations. So that would probably be something that I would look into next year.
Yes, interject.
Yeah, I don't know too much, but
if I were to advise you, Christina, I have the perfect fellowship to suggest you apply for, which is something that is so well suited for GLI. It's the JEFU, the Jewish Fund for Education for Women, because
yes, that's what I was talking about. I just wasn't sure of the name.
and then this is the right time to apply for it. It's a 2-year fellowship with amazing funding opportunities. Your studies are funded for 2 full years, and you are at the same time a part of a group of fellows, and you have to attend certain programs that they cater to you. They invite ambassadors and people from the Foreign Service to give lectures. They guide you, and then there is a paid internship at the end. And the whole idea behind this fellowship is to diversify the Foreign Service. It's to allow more women to be part of it, and in particular women from a diverse background, and so if you fall into that category, it is just an incredible opportunity, funding opportunity, but also it sets you on the track towards diplomacy and or working in NGO or the UN, etc.
Right, and I thought, Christina, I thought you were, oh, sorry, I'll come back to you in a second. I thought you were going to mention the Juliana Global Fellowships that we were talking about earlier today, because those
This is
are
another one too.
much smaller scope, but the ability to apply for money to go do something for 2 weeks, 2 months over the summer, is something that you create as long as you go more than 200 miles from home. So, and from Stony Brook. So it's really a creative exploration. You could use a fellowship like that to go to sub-Saharan Africa, and you should apply. But Professor Walters, you were going to say something.
I was just going to chime in and just remind the students here about our positionality where we are, that the UN is not too far away from us. All the major embassies are right there. Well, a number of them are right there in New York City, in addition to a number of NGOs. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
Right. So what other types of work study experiences do you see students taking with this major? Experiential learning, or
So as
even,
you know, as I mentioned, study abroad or internship is a very important part of the degree. It is mandatory. So I work very closely with the Career Center here at Stony Brook, and they are partnering with us to help students identify which experience they want to have and where. So they provide internship. We also want to pair with other programs that are going on campus, because we have, the Madagascar program, the Turkana Basin. So as much as possible, trying to use the resources that we have here already on campus or within the SUNY system is more than enough to explore. And as I mentioned, I work closely with all these officers, be them at Stony Brook or SUNY-wide, in order to set the students up to and then so that they're able to accomplish, to finish their degree. Another thing I would like to mention is that the rotation of courses that we offer is frequent enough so that students who start on the GLI major can graduate within 4 semesters.
There are also opportunities for local. It's great for students to have the opportunity to study abroad. I think all students should do that regardless of major. But we also have part of the GLI 402 course also gives students an opportunity to work with community organizations that are linked to the global. So whether or not that's working with newly arrived immigrants, for example, or farm laborers, and that might come from Central America, there are opportunities to work more locally on global issues.
Right, and in terms of actual work study opportunities, there are many, many different work study opportunities on campus generally, both for the GLI major and otherwise. And I believe, Christina, you just mentioned you've just started a job in the Office of Global Affairs, which is probably more administrative, I'm guessing, but you get to see what's going on all around you in terms of the various programs like study abroad that are administered out of that office. So it's we have many opportunities for students to, if they qualify for federal work study, to do those positions on campus through the work study program. Really key.
The students also who have successfully participated in a core course and have been particularly interested in that course, have the opportunity to do a teaching practicum with the instructor the next time the course is offered. Same thing goes with the internship. People really interested in GLI and helping the program expand and develop. We are always interested in our enthusiastic students. If we can, make full use of them this way, we do.
I would like to mention class size. I think is important too. We have very large classes in some majors, and the class sizes are not overwhelming in GLI. I think they're usually about 50, maybe a little bit higher than that.
Yes, 55 cap.
So
for 2 instructors. Yes.
So you get some personalized attention from your professors. It's not so large that you get lost, that the professors will know who you are and your voice could be heard. So I think that's something that's important, given that some of our classes are double or more than double.
And just
Yeah,
to
and I think-
emphasize that it's 2 faculty, full-time faculty, not teaching assistants in those classes, which is a key distinction with some of our introductory science classes. Yep, Rachel, if you want to wrap us up, I think we've answered all of the questions here tonight, and or as it's turning into evening. I'd like to thank the admissions team, particularly our admissions counselor, Rachel Wells, who's assisted us this early evening. And thank you everyone for joining us. We plan on seeing you in the fall. We want you to be here with us in GLI. And Rachel, any other last words you'd like to offer?
No, I think that's it. You guys did a great job. Thank you guys so much for hosting this event and taking your time out of your day. We appreciate that as well. And thank you to all the attendees too who joined us today. This session will be recorded and it will be on our YouTube. So if you can find our channel on YouTube, it's Stony Brook Undergraduate Admissions. So you can search for that. It should be up within the next few days or so. So if you wanted to reference it based on, the content that was covered, you can go back and rewatch all of this lovely content that we covered today. So thank you all again. Appreciate it.
All right. Stay safe out there, everyone. Be well.
Good night, everyone.